What's going on, Colts Nation? I appreciate you joining me for another video where today we're going to talk a little bit more about a defensive coordinator. The search continues. The interviews continue. A guy having an interview today actually is going to be Wink Martindale. And this is somebody that last year I was hoping we would end up pursuing, right? And I'm a Michigan fan. I'm not huge into college football, but I am a Michigan fan. So when you ended up having Wink Martindale, he goes to Michigan. I was okay with that when he didn't go to the Colts. I was like, okay, turnover period. Harbaugh's not going to be there, but another NFL coach is going to be there. Obviously, we don't go to college football playoffs and whatnot, but nonetheless, Wink Martindale. I was hoping to get him last year. We kept a hold of Gus Bradley, just kept him till the end of his contract and let him go, and now we're in a position where Wink Martindale may go back to the NFL. He may not. I know that. He did yesterday interview with the Falcons for their defensive coordinator position. They fired their defensive coordinator after one season over down there. So much talent seemingly for the Falcons and such a disappointing defense. Kind of makes sense for them to do that. And it would make sense for them to go get a guy like Wink Martindale. And it would make sense for Wink Martindale to go there. But for all intents and purposes, like you think about what Wink Martindale brings, this one of the things I love about Wink Martindale. Of course, when you think about him and you hear about him, it's of course his aggressiveness. He is a very aggressive defensive coordinator. But what I like the most is that he disguises things. I think that's such an underrated part of being able to play defense. And of course, the players have to be heady enough to be able to figure it out and to be able to know, hey, pre-snap, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I need to move. Right when there's 10 seconds on the clock, this is where I am. When there's 5 seconds on the play clock, this is where I am. Or, hey, this is where the quarterback's cadence is. This is where I need to be, right? It's things like that, the small details like that within a defense. And I think those things, being able to disguise, being able to run multiple defenses, there is a lot of single high. There is disguised a lot of single high because there's a lot of single high, right? And that's one thing about the Wink Martindale defense. And one thing that we're gonna have to work if you were to bring a guy like Wink Martindale in, your secondary is gonna have to tighten up. You're gonna have to be real confident with who you got back there because he's gonna put him in situations where, because he's being aggressive, there's a lot of that single high man. And at least the number one corner, you look through all the different research, everything that I've seen, all said the same things. Everything when you think back on those Ravens defenses, it's all the same. Like that number one guy gets put in a lot of man situations, and you expect him to be able to take somebody away or try to mitigate what the number one receiver is going to do. And for us going into next year, right now, that'd be Jalen Jones. I think year two, kind of what I expected. It wasn't going to be perfect, but I thought he took a massive step forward, had a really good season. Wouldn't have been surprised if he made the Pro Bowl. I just think some sort of recognition. Obviously, the Pro Bowl isn't held in high regards like that anymore, but I just think he had a good season. I think going into his third year, I think we'll be happy with what we see from him. It'll be interesting to see, depending on which defensive coordinator we do get, how will that go for Jalen Jones? But if you get Wink Martindale, he's going to have to play man, but he's going to have an opportunity to play at the line of scrimmage. The same thing we talked about with Dennis Allen. You could finally get Jalen Jones with his physical traits, like the guys that Chris Ballard drafts, these long arm, physical cornerbacks, right? This is Juju Brents. He can't stay on the field, but he's the same way. These bigger guys are drafted to be able to play at the line of scrimmage and to be able to put their hands on a wide receiver. You're rerouting them. You're making them take longer to get down the field. You know what that half a second to a second does? That, you jam a guy up on his route, that quarterback, all of a sudden the short game doesn't work anymore, right? Which is another thing. As I went back and started looking at some of the plays from the Ravens, from the Giants, some of the things that he would do, and a lot of people talk about, he runs a 3-4. You'll see a lot of times, even when he's running just a nickel package with 4 linemen, 2 of them are going to be standing up. You'll see a lot of that too. A lot of elements of the 3-4 defense, but it's the NFL. A lot of people are playing nickel. It's just kind of what you have to do when other teams are rolling out, 3, 4 wide receivers. But he will play heavy sets, and he'll play again very aggressive. He'll put 10 guys in the box, right, between up to 5 yards, 5 to 8 yards of the line of scrimmage. You're gonna have 10 guys. That's Wink Martindale football, and so overall. Again, you're going to have to be in a situation where you have to get a secondary you trust. I think Nick Cross and his development, I think he could be really good in an aggressive defense for Wink Martindale. I think what Kyle Hamilton is doing for the Ravens over the past couple years, I think that's where we can get Nick Cross to. If you get an aggressive defensive coordinator that knows how to put his players in positions to make plays, and really accentuating the talents of a guy like Nick Cross. So overall, it's really just who's that other safety going to be, right? If you have one of your safeties playing near the box, playing near the line of scrimmage, if he's going to be your aggressive safety, who are you going to have playing over the top? Julian Blackmon's out of the building. You got to go get a real free safety, somebody who's a natural free safety. Julian Blackmon, just from the comments he had all year long, very clearly didn't actually want to play the free safety position. He wanted to be able to play strong safety. I think his performance suffered because of it. His morale suffered because of it. His effort suffered because of it. And obviously some other things. There are plenty of players on the defense whose effort suffered. But Julian Blackmon, very down year. Somebody that I just would be very surprised to see him come back. And who's that going to be, right? And of course, we're definitely going to talk about that at some point. I'll look into that. I think that safety position is going to be important no matter who we get at defensive coordinator. But a lot of the coordinators we're looking at have a secondary background. That's where Wink Martindale is different. Wink Martindale, his NFL, he coached in college for a little while, and then when he went to the NFL, was either linebackers coach or defensive coordinator, and that's it. So no in between. It's just one or the other for him so far in the NFL. So a guy that has experience, we need help with the linebackers. He could do that, but if we got Wink Martindale, like we would have to get a guy. Obviously, EJ's not going to be here. We'd have to get a guy like Dre Greenlaw. And if we were able to pull that off, then I would completely be 100% behind the idea of, hey, let's trade Zaire Franklin. And now you have Dre Greenlaw, Jalen Carleys as your top 2 linebackers going into the season. Then figure out the linebacker room beyond that. Grant Stewart, I believe, is a free agent as well. We'll see what happens with him. Do we bring him back for special teams, for depth purposes? Does he want to go somewhere else, try to get a chance somewhere else? We'll see what happens. How do we build the rest of the roster? Zaire Franklin getting traded, probably pretty unlikely. But it's just again, depends who you bring in. If you bring in Wink Martindale, I just don't think Zaire Franklin would be a good fit necessarily in that defense, that attack style defense. I think he's somebody that while he gets all these tackles, and for as good as he is in different ways, there are levels to this thing, and he's not Roquan Smith. Right, and that's just what I think about operating the middle of that defense. Do I think in Wink Martindale's defense? I just don't know if Zaire is doing that. Of course, it would be a challenge for him to have to overcome, because he would have to do a lot. He'd be asked to do a lot. The linebackers will be asked to do a lot. They're going to be put in some vicarious situation. That's what's tough about the Wink Martindale defense. You got to have dogs, right? And of course, we have 2 guys up front that you really like to have, of course, and DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart. It would bode well, really, really well for us if we got Wink Martindale. Those 2 being in the middle, really good for the defense with what he's trying to do. Really good to have them in the middle of the defense. And, of course, Kwity Paye on his 5th-year option. Do we keep him? Do we trade him? I assume we're going to keep him. Dio, do we bring him back? Latu, you would assume he's finally going to be able to play a good amount, at least enough to actually have some real production. At least that's what I'd hope. So overall, I think Of course, there has to be some roster construction. Like no matter who we bring in, there has to be some bit of roster construction that has to change and be different. A lot of guys that are going to be free agents on the team, and we're going to have to be able to fill spaces. Depth pieces are going to have to be filled in. For this is the NFL. Injuries happen. We see it. I think pretty much everybody on our defense missed time this year, right? Like at least a game or two. So you just have to. We'll look at everything, but for all intents and purposes, if we got Wing Martindale, I would not be upset. Right? There are a couple of like Lou Anarumo, the ones we've talked about so far: Lou Anarumo, Dennis Allen, and Wing Martindale. Any of these three guys, if we were to get them, I'd be a happy man, and I'd be good with it. I think our defense would be in a good spot. Of course, there is another interview that has already happened, and we will talk about it. I have not forgotten about Steve Wilks. Just haven't had time to really dive into him yet. I know the last thing we ever heard from was him with the San Francisco defense. That didn't go well. Before that, it was the Panthers as an interim head coach. That defense was pretty good. He did a pretty good job as interim head coach. So I'll look into it. I've seen a lot of people say that, bringing him in, you might as well have just re-signed Gus Bradley. So I'll see what I can find about Steve Wilks and about the other guys that we're going to be looking at. And of course, more conversation. Now, free agency is a little bit down the road, right? We're a couple months away from free agency. So right now, trying to get the defensive coordinator conversation taken care of and look at all these guys and have these conversations with you guys so that you guys can just in case you don't know these guys, don't know the intricacies of their defense, hey, let's learn together because I didn't know the intricacies of Lou Anarumo's defense. I just heard he was a good defense coordinator. I did the same thing about Dennis Allen. So looking at each one of these guys, I'm finding things, just trying to share what I can with you guys. You let me know what you think down in the comment section. Of course, again, we'll get to free agents very, very soon. We're going to have those conversations coming up very, 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 very soon. Just want to get through these defensive coordinator conversations, and then we'll be on to really start diving into all the different possibilities of what we do with this roster and how we rebuild it and who we bring in this offseason. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you have notifications on so you're getting notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. Of course, I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.